When it comes to scandals and controversies, preachers can't get a break, especially not when they're in the spotlight like Pastor Clarence McClendon. Over the years, he's found himself in his fair share of rumors and speculations, but this time around, it looks like his ex-wife is finally clearing up some thinly veiled rumors. What led to their divorce? Is Pastor Clarence siphoning church funds? And why did he leave the church? Let's find out. These days, many people find it harder and harder to trust celebrity preachers. The reasons behind such tentativeness usually range from a perceived thirst for fame to misusing church funds and misinterpretation of the gospel. But there was once a time Clarence McClendon could do no wrong. Born in 1965 to a family of ardent churchgoers, Clarence pretty much had his entire life mapped out for him. At just 15 years old, he would start preaching and leading church services. He was the kind of guy parents wanted their sons to be like and their daughters to walk down the aisle with. Many felt the young boy was destined for greatness, and they were right. He kicked off his singing career in 2000 and became a leading name as well as one of the most respected rising leaders in LA. In fact, he was even Tia and Tamara Mowry's former pastor. However, the price that came with being in the public eye was probably something Clarence never envisioned. His entire life seemed to be at a standstill when his wife of 16 years, Tamara, and mother of their 4 children, divorced the then 35-year-old McClendon. The heat was 2000, and Clarence was just starting to get a foot through the door of gospel music. So, when he was asked about why he, a man of God, who preached against divorce, would perform a hypocritical U-turn, Clarence was very quick to shift the blame onto his wife. According to him, she had wanted to leave, and the best thing he could do for her was to give her what she wanted. Very soon, however, his web of lies would be exposed, and he'd be forced to confront the alleged truth of the matter. The year was 1984, and newlyweds Tamara and Clarence had just tied the knot. The duo was very happy together. For one, Clarence was one of the most handsome men out there. He also loved God, and he loved Tamara very much. The latter shared the same affection, and together, they began to build their lives as one. The seemingly happy couple went on to have 2 children together. But as the years rolled by, the once happy facade seemed to crack open, revealing a carefully spun web of lies. It's unclear how much is true, but according to speculations, Tamara had begun to notice that her husband wasn't the man he claimed to be. He had transitioned to becoming a televangelist in 1997, and his fame was growing within and outside the country, but with popularity and wealth came the deadly sins of greed and deceit. According to the allegations, Tamara discovered that her husband had been engaged in illicit affairs with much younger women. Supposedly, she had started to notice the inconsistencies in his excuses and the late nights he was keeping out. Upon further investigation, Tamara allegedly discovered that her husband was involved with other women. Now, once again, we must mention that these are all speculations and have not been confirmed in any way, but it's important for us to understand what many believe might have been the reason behind such an unexpected split. Anyway, upon allegedly finding out that her husband was entangled in affairs, Tamara made up her mind to leave the relationship. They had spent 16 years together, but at that moment, the young woman wasn't even sure she knew the man she had married. And so, the bitter divorce battle began. But here's the thing with divorce and the church, it's a very delicate issue that is often treated differently from denomination to denomination, theological interpretation, and cultural context. According to the Bible, divorce is only permissible based on adultery or intimate immorality. However, different Christian traditions have varied interpretations of these scriptures. Some hold that divorce is only permissible in cases of adultery or abuse, while others allow more lenient grounds. But for a preacher like Pastor Clarence, who previously held beliefs that marriage was a holy sacrament and not meant to be broken, his divorce was bound to cause some head-scratching and spiritual rethinking to many of his congregants. Noticing that the split might cause an issue within the church, Clarence was eager to admit that it had been Tamara who had asked for a divorce. This was the story all Christian-related blogs published. However, years later, Tamara was finally ready to tell her side of the story. Everything really hit the fan when she publicly refuted his story, telling one magazine that it was her husband who had pressed for the split. She sent shockwaves throughout the entire Christian body as she clarified that she 40 Tamara stated that she didn't want a divorce. According to her, when she finally agreed to the divorce, Clarence asked her to file because it would look bad if he divorced her, which could hurt his ministry. She had agreed, which was why she became the one to file for divorce. On top of that, before the officials in the denomination Clarence belonged to had an opportunity to review and investigate what happened, he hurriedly pulled his 10,000-member Church of the Harvest International out of the organization, which meant that they could no longer investigate the issue. Although it's not exactly clear what the real reason behind his withdrawal from the organization was, Clarence had cited institutional racism as his purpose for leaving. However, Tamara denied this, stating that racism could not have been a concern because Clarence shared everything with me before we had marital problems, and he never once said that Foursquare was racist toward him. Interestingly, the year before, he had made a contrary statement as he hastily married Priscilla Delgado, who was 30 at the time, in a private ceremony performed on July 22 by Atlanta pastor Earl Polk. The wedding had taken place in Malibu, California. This new marriage shocked the entire Christian world as it had happened a mere 7 days after his divorce. He didn't even let the ink on his final divorce papers from his former wife dry before he jumped into another marriage. Irrespective of what the rumors speculate, Clarence maintained that he did not commit adultery, even though he didn't go on to give the reason behind his call for divorce. Many also perceived it to be a bit unusual that he would ask his wife to file for divorce and then lie that she had been the one to ask for it. It was also a bit sketchy that he pulled out of the church around the same time he divorced Tamara and married for a second time just 1 week after the divorce was declared final. According to a Christian publication, Tamara said Bishop Clarence told her that God revealed to him who he was supposed to marry. Confused, the woman said she then asked him, "How could God show you another woman when you already have a wife?" Unsurprisingly, Clarence didn't have a response for that. Luckily, Tamara found the strength to move on with her life. The aftermath of the divorce was rather stressful for Tamara. Following its success, she made an active decision to not dwell on the past, but instead pick up the pieces of her life and use her experience to restore women who have been traumatized by marriage problems. After 16 years of marriage to Clarence McClendon, Tamara, who was 36 at the time, found strength in her faith as she moved forward with her life. She shared that her personal struggles had led her to discover a new ministry calling. In her words, "God has birthed a ministry in me as a result of my personal problems." Despite the challenges, she remained focused on her growth, going on to share joint custody of their 3 children with Clarence. In response to the divorce, even though he had run off to another woman, Clarence stated there were truly no other relationships involved, offering reassurance through his spiritual counsel, which included figures like Polk, Bishop Paul Morton, Mark Hanby, Darrell Hines, and Bishop Dennis Leonard, though Morton was the only one absent from their wedding. Tamara, who's now living in Hawaii, shared that she received what she considered fair alimony for the next decade. "The alimony I receive is fair for the seeds I've sown for 16 years, she said. Her financial support is matched by a deep commitment to her calling. Tamara, an Illinois native, founded Esther's Way, a non-profit organization focused on helping troubled women from all walks of life. She was also gearing up for her No One to Touch My Heart conference in October that year, where she shared tips to guide women on how to overcome life's difficulties and find purpose in their ministries in the modern world. Evie Nelson, a former worship leader at Church of the Harvest, shared her admiration for Tamara's strength and integrity. According to her, Tammy is a living, breathing example of the Proverbs 31 and Titus woman. She is a godly woman, full of integrity. Despite the challenges and the public nature of her situation, Tamara holds no bitterness toward her failed marriage. She believes that her experience and the issues in the church today are part of God's plan for her to share her story. She's been compelled to speak out, convinced that a spirit of deception is infiltrating the church. Tamara concluded that God is looking for men and women who will exemplify integrity and truth with His word as they impact the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. As messy as the divorce situation was, nothing could have prepared us for the backlash Clarence would receive following his participation in the reality TV show, The Preachers of L.A. 4-0. Preachers of L.A. Flashy cars, expensive houses, and luxury getaways, these are just a few of the glitz and glamorous lives of the preachers of L.A. With the growing influence of the media and television in propagating the gospel, it's not uncommon to find many church-related reality television shows. But the real question is, how much of this lavish lifestyle aligns with the teachings of the gospel? While many of these televangelists and pastors claim to be spreading the word of God, their extravagant lifestyles have raised eyebrows among critics and followers alike. Because let's be real, flashy cars, million-dollar mansions, and frequent luxury vacations seem to contradict the humble lifestyle that Jesus advocated. In some cases, churchgoers sometimes wonder if their tithes and donations are being used to enrich the personal lives of the leaders rather than to support the ministry's core mission of helping the poor and spreading the gospel. This disconnect has unfortunately led to debates about the ethics of wealth in the ministry, with some arguing that it fosters a culture of materialism rather than spiritual growth. Despite this, others, like the preachers on the reality show, defend the notion of the prosperity gospel, which suggests that wealth is a sign of God's favor and that successful pastors are simply being blessed. However, the tension remains. Many question how much of this wealth is truly in service to God's will and how much is rooted in self-promotion. Others, on the other hand, believe reality TV, which places a hot, glowing spotlight on the lives of its participants, will likely continue the downward spiral of the church's reputation in the eyes of the public. In the fall of 2013, the reality TV spotlight did not shine on housewives or contestants battling it out on an island, but on an unexpected cast, Preachers. Preachers of LA, which debuted on Oxygen in 2013, takes a deep dive into the lives of 6 influential men of the cloth, offering viewers a behind-the-scenes look at both their church roles and personal lives. The show introduces a diverse group of pastors, including the son of an evangelist shunned after a divorce, a pastor leading a church packed with celebrities, and a bishop whose weekly broadcast reaches millions across the globe. Also featured are a pastor whose greatest struggle lies within his own family, a former gang member and drug addict turned bishop, and a pastor with a past in competitive skateboarding. One of the show's stars, Dietrich Haddon, embraces the raw truth about his life. According to Dietrich, it's all about the truth for me from this point on. The truth about my baby out of wedlock, the truth about my divorce. It happened. There's nothing I can do about that. While the show highlights their spiritual work, it also showcases the flashy, extravagant lifestyles of these preachers. For example, Bishop Clarence reflected that, "The Bible says, 'I wish above all things that you would prosper.' I believe that." Similarly, Bishop Ron Gibson stated, "P. Diddy and Jay-Z. They are not the only ones who should be driving Ferraris and living in large houses." Such remarks have sparked controversy, with critics accusing the preachers of not embodying true Christianity. Frank Peretti, a well-known Christian author, voiced concerns, telling ABC News that these men seem more focused on money than ministry. The show stirred up mixed reactions, with some viewers expressing embarrassment at the portrayal of Christianity, while others defended the preacher's wealth. One commenter wrote, "I'm so ashamed to be Christian right now," while another argued, "God doesn't want us to be poor." Despite the backlash, the stars of Preachers of LA were very quick to defend their lifestyles, claiming that their success is a reward, not the mission. "The best part of my job is helping. 4-0. Hurting people and Clarence's doubts. Hurting people, said Gibson, highlighting the purpose behind their extravagant lives. But Clarence was rather quick to distance himself from the series following its controversial debut. Allegedly, he was beginning to have second thoughts about his participation as soon as the series aired. He had posted an online video message in which he explained that the show had evolved into something far removed from what he had initially agreed to. Clarence was forced to reflect on his initial approach to the project, recalling how he was told that it wouldn't be a reality show but rather a docu-series. He clarified that he wasn't part of the initial creation of the show and that this wasn't the first time he'd been presented with opportunities that didn't align with his values. In fact, he had turned down several similar offers in the past. The veteran preacher shared that he knew the producers behind the show, L. Plummer Media, in collaboration with Relieve Entertainment, and he had faith in their integrity. He trusted that their personal relationships with God would guide how they handled the development of the show. In his words, "I believed the people involved were Christian individuals, people I knew, filled with the Holy Spirit. I thought they really wanted to create something meaningful in the Hollywood landscape." However, He acknowledged that the network's involvement introduced a layer of decision-making that sometimes led to miscommunications and misunderstandings. Despite this, he initially believed that they could still accomplish something significant based on what God had revealed to him. Preaching had been Clarence's passion since he was 15 years old. He made it clear that fame had never been his goal. "I'm a private person, and I'm certainly not after fame," he said. "I'm known more than I'd like to be." He saw himself as a bridge builder and a peacemaker, adding, "Sometimes when you build bridges, you get walked on." He emphasized that his focus had always been on spreading his faith, not on celebrity. However, things took a turn during a tense exchange with Dietrich Haddon, recording artist and former pastor. The two clashed over the topic of pastors having entourages and requesting honorariums for their services. The disagreement escalated, leading to Clarence walking out of the house where a gathering of pastors was taking place. Looking back, he recognized the situation for what it was. "When things heated up, I realized I was entering what the Bible calls an ignorant and foolish dispute," he said. He also believed that he had been deliberately placed in the middle of a conflict. "I wasn't supposed to be there in the first place," Clarence stated. "I'm not going to let people abuse or exploit this for the sake of television." He referenced the Bible verse 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 23, which advises believers to avoid foolish disputes that only lead to strife. Additionally, he felt strongly that the heated debate had been a setup to undermine him, painting him as someone involved in behaviors he didn't believe in. The controversy had centered around an incident that occurred when Clarence arrived at the airport. According to him, the producers sent a car to pick him up and bring him to a man cave, where all the ministers were shooting. He arrived with his son, his assistant, and the driver that the producers had arranged for him. He believed this choice created the impression that he traveled with an entourage, which became a point of contention during the argument with Dietrich. Dietrich had argued that pastors should deliver the gospel without charging a fee, to which Clarence responded that he didn't have a set honorarium. He clarified that, of the 200 to 300 invitations he received annually, his team made the decision about which ones to accept. "We've never turned anyone away because they couldn't afford my team," he asserted. Despite Dietrich's push for the gospel to be freely given, reports revealed that Dietrich himself had a booking fee ranging between $15,000 to $25,000, according to his booking agent, Faith Management. Clarence ended his message with a call for prayer. "Pray for me, and pray for all of us involved, that God would be glorified," he said, leaving his audience with a reminder of the importance of faith and the need for guidance in difficult situations. However, some netizens hurriedly stated that the only reason he was coming out to say all this was because the series had faced serious backlash. What are your thoughts on Pastor Clarence? Tell us in the comments below. Also, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you're notified whenever we upload a new video. 4-0.